Hello, this is Daryl here, sending love as always. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to say if you like this interview, you can check our website for companion workbooks, action guides, tools, checklists, templates, and show notes with links for everything mentioned on the call. Just visit bestbusinesscoach.ca. That's best, B-E-S-T, businesscoach.ca. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too, without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are speaking with Todd Brown. Todd has an uncanny ability for transforming ordinary mundane marketing campaigns into grand slam moneymakers. His unique marketing funnel strategies, tactics, and copy hacks have generated tens of millions of dollars for himself, his clients, and many of his coaching students. He's the creator of several training programs, including the Marketing Funnel Automation Program, the Marketing Funnels Uncensored Newsletter, the Six-Figure Funnel Formula, and 26 Advanced Marketing Funnel Conversion Tactics. He's worked with Jay Abraham, Michael Masterson, Clayton Makepeace, John Carlton, Mike Filsame, Russell Brunson, Frank Kern, Chris Brisson, and Ryan Dice, if any of those names mean anything to you. He's also a highly sought-after speaker and has been on stages with Michael Gerber and Brian Tracy, among other notable professionals. Many people know him through his work with Strategic Profits, where he worked alongside Rich Schefrin, a highly respected entrepreneur known to have made over $3 million in only 7 days. Todd Brown, for many, is the go-to guy for creating wildly profitable marketing funnels. Why a marketing funnel? What is a marketing funnel? Well, if you don't know, a marketing funnel is a step-by-step strategic system for turning eyeballs into leads and then customers. And if you want to play like the big boys, then a single phenomenal front-end marketing funnel could revolutionize your business. It could revolutionize your business by allowing you to generate new customers at break even, meaning you spend $1,000 and you get $1,000 worth of new customers. When you get that, you've just reached the promised land because it's no longer about marketing. It becomes a scale issue. Now, a heads up, this call has nothing to do with any get-rich-quick fluff. Todd is a firm believer that there's no fast way to sustainable riches in business. He's been in the game a long time and knows there's a big difference between having an income stream or making money online and having an online business. I know I'm super excited to finally be able to connect with him today. I've wanted to have this conversation for a long time now. Todd is someone I've not had the pleasure of meeting in person yet, but we have something like 250 mutual friends on Facebook, and I've been a fan of his from a distance for a long time. One thing that I do know is we both agree in order to have a sustainable business, you have to have a rock-solid marketing funnel that allows you to pay for traffic and do paid media and break even on that. So I present to you the man himself, Todd Brown. Todd, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. That was an awesome introduction. It made me sound a lot cooler than what I really am, man. But that is awesome. I love how you nailed, and I know you and I are in total agreement, the whole premise of building a real business online and not seeking out the fast buck or anything like that and doing it through strategic marketing. And so, man, yeah, I'm excited to be here with you, dude.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And, you've got like a huge list of accomplishments and just, one of the things I love about marketing is it's so diverse and it's an extremely powerful skill. But you obviously weren't as good of a marketer as you are today back in the day. So how did you even kind of first get started?
Yeah, that's an awesome story, man. So I was working in the health club industry. I was working for a company in New Jersey that owned, at the time, about 10 upscale health clubs, and I was responsible for one of the departments in the entire company, a department that was responsible for generating, money. So we were generating about $3 million a year. And so at the time I knew nothing about direct response marketing, copy, anything like that. When I thought of advertiser, or really I should say when I thought of marketing, I thought of advertising, Coca-Cola and the big brand institutional messages that most people associate with advertising. And so one day in the mail, I received like a direct response postcard from some dude who was selling a marketing and sales system for the fitness industry. And so he was charging about $399 for it. I went to the owner. I said, hey, I want to buy this, and I'm going to expense it. It looks kind of interesting. He said, cool, go ahead. I got it. It was a big, gigantic home study course. I had never seen anything like that before, and I dove in, and immediately I was just enamored with this whole idea of salesmanship in print and kind of leveraging your marketing and sales skills through copy and through offer creation and whatnot. And so I immediately picked up the phone. I called the dude who created it, and I said, who did you learn from? And he said, Dan Kennedy. And so I'm embarrassed to admit that I immediately went out and ordered everything I could on eBay from Dan. So all these cassette tapes and everything. And I actually still have those. I saved them kind of as like, mementos of those early days. And so that was my introduction into the direct response world. And so I began implementing what I was learning in the company. My department skyrocketed. I became like the poster child for the executive team at the company. And it was just amazing. And then I got the bug to kind of share what it is that we were doing in the health clubs. And, we took a bunch of what I learned and we tweaked it to make it fit. And so I decided that I wanted to create my own information product, but not for the fitness or health club arena, just because I didn't want there to be a conflict of interest with the owner. And so I decided to launch an information product for massage therapists, because we were working with massage therapists and chiropractors and whatnot. And that was the beginning of the end of my time as an employee, because it was just amazing and awesome. But I will say this, man, I remember very, very clearly. This has been now maybe 13 years ago. I remember very clearly what it was like starting off, and I didn't know anything about tech. I just knew how to send an email. And I remember, sitting at the computer and hitting refresh on my email, waiting for a sale to come in and all that. But yeah, man, that was my introduction into the world of direct response and information publishing.
Well, that's definitely a path that a lot of people follow. A lot of people learn stuff from Dan Kennedy. It's funny how you said that you were embarrassed, though. Why were you embarrassed? Just because you went on eBay instead of buying it from me?
Yeah. Like I've always felt, since then I've gone on and spent a bunch of money with Dan. But yeah, just embarrassed that I always felt like after I should just send him a check for, just to make up for all the money that I paid other people for his stuff. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like a music question as well when you get to that, because now with the internet, that's something that comes up a lot. Like, how do we protect information? What's the value of information now? Because it can be so easily accessible. It's kind of a bit off topic, but what are some of the ways that you guys are trying to battle that? Because I know that that's a big thing in the industry overall.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, man, and it's an interesting topic. I really believe, and I think I don't remember who I first heard this from or where I first learned this from, but I really don't try to get caught up in, that side of the business. We take measures, of course, to protect our content, of course, especially our paid trainings and programs and whatnot. We take all the measures that we can, but beyond that, I don't get crazy about trying to lock everything down, to the point where it then impacts the client experience or the customer experience. I just believe, man, that, I can be I can be more prolific. I can create content, quality content faster than it can get out. And so I just try not to get caught up in, I feel like, man, you got to be so careful with the internet that you're not getting wrapped up in the haters, in trolls, because, man, very quickly that stuff can wreak havoc on your psychology and your motivation. And so, yeah, I don't do a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just asked because you've been in the game a heck of a lot longer than I have, and so you've seen you've seen kind of the seasons come and go, so to speak.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that have kind of stood the test of time, at least, or things that I guess I'm changing topics here, but just because I asked you that, and that's part of why I asked that, because I thought maybe you'd be able to say something about how it evolved, but that's totally fine because I agree with you on that you're better. I mean, that's Ray Kroc. It's like if you're not leading with marketing and innovation, then you're falling behind, right? Because exactly that. You can't, it's really hard to protect, and even if you trademark your stuff, now you have to fight it, and it's just a big, it's just loss of focus. So what have been some of the things that you've seen in, like you said, the 13 years that have really stood the test of time, that are just quintessential things that have really helped you be successful?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question, man. I think it's just it's a big overarching kind of philosophy, if you will, that I function with on a daily basis, as does the bulk of my most of my team, and that is that I focus on strategy, not tactics. The reality is that for most marketers, especially newer marketers online, they don't really even – I would go as far as to say that they don't really understand the implications of the difference between a tactic and a strategy, right? The reality is that, tactics are the things that we do to execute on the strategies, right? So, for example, using a countdown timer on your website, that's an example of a tactic to leverage scarcity, urgency, using Facebook comments on a web page underneath a video, right? That's a tactic for demonstrating social proof. The reality is that tactics come and go. There are things that tactically are effective today that won't be effective a year from now. And so I focus, at least certainly when it comes to my education, my ongoing growth in that area and knowledge, learning, I focus on strategy, because strategies don't change, right? Like things like leveraging social proof, that was effective, is effective, and will remain effective. Right. The thing that will change is how we actually execute tactically the demonstration of social proof. And so I think that, it was my buddy who you mentioned, Rich Sheffrin, brilliant marketer, brilliant entrepreneur, who first said to me many years ago, we were having a conversation about the difference between the all-star marketers and the average marketers. And the discussion came to this point where it was like, look, the difference is not in the strategies, right? Like the all-star marketers, we're still, we're still like you, me, we're still using, social proof and authority and commitment and consistency, Cialdini, stuff, if you will. The difference is in how we actually execute those things tactically. Whereas the average everyday marketer will just use the common tactics, the things that they see everybody else using. The all-star marketer is constantly looking for new, different, and unique ways to tactically implement on those same strategies. And so, number one, I think that everybody listening to this, obviously you've got a savvy audience, right, to be listening to, because I've had the chance to listen to many of your podcast episodes, and so and really enjoy your approach and perspective. And I know that, you attract quality individuals. Nobody on here should be studying tactics unless you are in the business of executing those. Like, unless you have an agency where you do Facebook advertising, if you're studying the nitty gritty details of Facebook advertising, the reality is that a year from now, you're still going to be doing that, because those tactics change and evolve. And so your marketing chops never really improve because you're still studying and mastering the same thing a year later. And that's why, like, if you look at my bookshelf in my home office behind me, you'll find that the bulk of marketing related books, especially, but the bulk of the books are strategic, right? And that's why many of the best marketing books that all of your listeners should be reading, they're decades old, right? Breakthrough Advertising and all of John Capel's books and Victor Schwab and Robert Collier, all these books that are decades and decades and decades old, yet they still apply today. That's because they're strategic, not tactical, right? I've never bought a book on how, especially a physical book on like how to do Facebook advertising, because the reality is by the time that thing hits your shelf, it's probably dated because it's tactical.
Right.
And so the last thing, just very quickly, that I'll say is everybody on here, before they go and they swipe a marketing tactic from an expert or a quote-unquote guru, whatever you want to call it, you've got to make sure that you understand the strategic reason why that tactic is being used. Because the example that I like to give all the time is, you take the average marketer who's just getting started. He or she goes over, sees somebody like you, Daryl, that is, let's say, using, the Facebook comment widget somewhere in your marketing funnel. And they go and they say, okay, so I need to have a Facebook comment widget somewhere in my funnel. And so they see that you have 150 comments below a video in your funnel. And so they take the comment widget and they drop it on their page, but now they have 3 comments. And they don't realize that the whole reason why you're using that Facebook comment widget is to execute or demonstrate the strategy of social proof. And now they have 3 comments. And so if anything, they have reverse or negative social proof. And they just shot themselves in the foot. They're using the same exact tactic, but strategically they just killed themselves. And so strategy, not tactics.
Yeah, and that's a really, really, really important thing to say, because I say that often. You can't build a house just by looking at it from outside and trying to model it. It's just not going to work. And that's why we get coaches and consultants in that, because we need to know the inside details. And I know exactly what you mean, because I've heard of people that their businesses go belly up when no longer they can't get 10-cent clicks anymore, and they can't afford this really super cheap advertising. And of course we all want cheap advertising, but the reality is, like what you said, it's strategically, that's not what you really want to focus on. If your business is focused on free or cheap traffic, you're never going to be able to get off the ground, and that's a huge, I think that's a really, really, really important tidbit that you told our listeners. I hope some people are taking notes and writing this down. Yeah.
Even the whole idea, man, just since, you mentioned it, even the whole idea of, these marketers that go on, let's say Facebook or whatnot, and they post, hey, I'm getting, 10-cent clicks. It's amazing. It's incredible. And the reality is that, like, a lot of marketers don't even recognize the fact that, who cares if you're getting 10-cent clicks if those clicks are worth 7 cents to you, right? Like, in other words, it's not, to me, there are certain things when I think they just don't understand, in some cases, not all by any stretch, right? Because there's tons of savvy marketers out there. But I think when it saddens me when I see newer marketers that are focused on something like getting cheap clicks, but they don't understand the overall strategy of direct response marketing, that the real game is in being able to afford the most per click, not the least, right? Like, you want to impress me, tell me that you're getting, $5 clicks and you're thrilled because every click is worth at least $5 or more to your business. Then I'm going to be impressed. And so, it saddens me when I see that.
No, but that's a really good and it's an important topic. And it's something that's come up a couple of times on these calls, because there's some recurring themes when we talk to people. There's one of having a really good team around you, and there's another one of being able to pay to market your business. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. I mean, that's why so many businesses don't scale at all. That's why a lot of small businesses fail, because they get into a brick and mortar scenario and they can't afford to advertise, and they just buy whatever marketing the first rep on their door shows up selling them, and they spend a couple $1,000 on that, and it doesn't work. And then so they're stuck trying to grow via word of mouth. And
Yeah.
that's just a painful way to grow, and you're never going to have a real business if that's how you grow and prosper. So maybe can you talk about that a little bit more, just about being able to afford that, and how do you even know? I mean, that's the other part. I know the answer, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. And, if there was one other kind of breakthrough mentally that that I had, that I hope all of your listeners have, if they haven't already, is this idea that if you can't afford to pay for the acquisition of customers, you don't really have a business, right? Like, I know that it was, I've been blessed and fortunate down here in South Florida to be surrounded by some incredible marketers and entrepreneurs and business people. And so I had the opportunity really to first get some, mentoring from Mark Ford, Michael Masterson, the guy behind Agora, a $500 million a year information marketing, giant, the biggest information or the biggest newsletter publisher today in the world. And, he was the guy that really opened my eyes to the fact that, security, stability, consistency in your business only comes from the ability to acquire customers from paid traffic. And so first and foremost, let me just say this, that the whole name of the game, first and foremost, the whole name of the game, the priority for everybody listening, before you outfit your office with a great chair and all, business cards, any of those type of things, your first main priority is setting up a conversion vehicle, or what you and I refer to as a marketing funnel. And we could certainly and should certainly talk about why I call it a marketing funnel and not a sales funnel later on if you want. Sure. But the priority is being able to set up this conversion vehicle that allows you to consistently acquire customers from paid traffic. Until you can do that, nothing else is more important. You have to be able to put in $1 into paid traffic on the internet and extract out $1 in the form of a sale, new customers and prospects. So when you mentioned in your introduction the idea of break even, that's where we focus with all of our clients, our coaching students, and that's where we focus in our own business. On the front end, all the marketing that we do with prospects with the aim of turning a prospect into a customer, our goal is to be able to put in $1 or $10 or $100, $1,000, whatever that number is. Our goal is to be able to turn that $1,000 into $1,000 of sales of new customers and prospects.
Right,
on the front end, as soon as possible, right? When you're able to do that, right, you're acquiring customers for free, you're acquiring leads for free, right? And so that's number one. And you are, to answer the second part of the question, right? That's why everybody on this call, everybody who uses direct response marketing, the beauty is that everything is quantifiable and trackable. So anytime you spend $1 on a Facebook ad, let's just say, well, you need to have your tracking in place that shows you what is the ROI of that dollar. So for that $1 that you put into that Facebook ad, how many dollars did you make back? And that's on the front end. That's the whole name of the game. And I think you said it best. The reality is that most marketers just can't do that. Most marketers don't have a funnel in place that allows them to extract out $1 for every dollar that they put in. They actually are forced to go negative on the front end. And so for most, it's just not sustainable and they can't do it.
No, and that's huge, because everybody knows, first of all, I think there's two key things in business. First of all, everybody knows you need new customers to have a business. So you have to be able to meet new people. And if it costs you more money to meet new people than you make off of meeting those people, then you're not going to be able to do that very long. And so that's just like fundamentally, that's just right. That's flawed. But then the second thing a lot of people don't realize, because I know some of these people are listening, they're like, great, but you spent $1,000, Todd, and you made $1,000, but like you broke even. So what? But I think a lot of people might not even realize that the value is in the regular customers. Everyone knows that you need regular customers to grow and sustain a business, but a lot of people, like one of my pet peeves is I'll go to a restaurant, I'll spend a couple $100s on some food, and I leave, and the restaurant owner has no idea who I am, no idea where I live, nothing. I just gave them a couple $100. I walk away, and they have a slow Thursday night, and they're going to what? They're going to put an ad in the newspaper and market to people who have no idea who they are. And so that's kind of the two parts. And I'm hoping this maybe segues into what you talk about the marketing funnel and why it's not just a sales funnel. Am I hitting it at all? Is that in it at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think first and foremost, just to address what you said, I think that it's the difference between the way the typical mom and pop entrepreneur operates from the way the savvier direct response marketer operates. The typical mom and pop entrepreneur, they don't differentiate between front end and back end. The purpose of every single transaction for your average entrepreneur is to generate profit, whether that's the first transaction with a brand new prospect, brand new customer, or the 12th transaction. In their mind, the objective of each of those transactions is identical, and that's to generate profit. Whereas the seasoned or savvy direct response marketer understands that, that there is value in a customer. There's value in a buyer that isn't necessarily there in a prospect. And so we look at marketing under two main broad categories. We've got front end and back end. Front end is all the marketing, like I said, that you do with prospects. And the goal is, to turn those prospects into customers. Right. Now, our goal on the front end is maximum customer acquisition. It's not maximum profit. It's not even profit. It's maximum customer acquisition. Now, when I start clients off, I always start them off with that means being willing to go to break even, meaning you put in 1,000, you get back 1,000, but now you have customers and leads and so on. That's where the back end comes in, and the back end is all the marketing that you do with existing customers. And in when you're in business, the savvy direct response marketers understand that all the profit in your business is on the back end, right? The most expensive activity in any business is the front end, and that's because you've got all those acquisition costs, right? It costs you a certain amount of money to acquire a customer. Most businesses don't even realize how high their acquisition costs are. They don't realize that, right? If they spend $1,000 and hypothetically acquire 5 new customers from that 1,000, they don't realize that it actually costs them $200 to acquire a single new customer. Yeah. And so when you're able to acquire customers for free, meaning you're breaking even on the front, the beauty is that the second transaction, the third transaction, the fourth transaction, that's all profit because you don't have those acquisition costs, of course, minus any cost of delivery on the product. And so, we differentiate and segment. Customers receive, customers get put into customer funnels for products that are, products and offers that are back end, and prospects go through marketing funnels that are designed to, again, to acquire maximum number of customers. And so there are certain types of offers and certain type of sequences that we only use on the front end. You hear, like, for example, you hear, let's say, a common vernacular in the IM, in the internet marketing community is the tripwire, right? Which came out of, from Ryan Deiss, and who's a friend and massive respect. I tip my hat to him. But the reality is what most people don't understand is that a tripwire is only an offer, which is an ultra low priced offer, right? It's a low barrier of entry offer. That should only be presented to a prospect. You should never be presenting a tripwire offer to a customer, because the whole reason for using a tripwire and the upsell sequence that is attached to it is to acquire a customer, is to be able to afford to pay for the acquisition of a customer. Once you have a customer, there's no value in exposing them to a tripwire, right? It's at that point that customers then get exposed to different products and different products and offers that are designed to generate profit and maximize the lifetime value of that customer to your business, meaning to increase the value of what a customer is worth to your business through multiple multiple and additional back-end offers.
Right. That's awesome. You read my mind, which just goes to show you're marketing savvy. Because I was going to ask, what's the difference between a front end and a back end offer? And that's a great tip. And also just to say that Ryan, he is a brilliant marketer. And tripwires are nothing new. And this isn't in no way disrespect to Ryan. A massive respect like you. Tripwires are nothing new. It's a front end offer. It's a loss leader. It's a front end offer. But I love how you differentiated that because it's exactly what he intended that purpose for. One, It was brilliant. You're on stage in front of 3,000 marketers, and he seeded lingo into the industry, which is now permeated to even, you know what I mean? It's even here, which is a brilliant marketing move on his part. But I love how you differentiate that. It's your tripwires are just low-end product offers, just that make it easy for someone to buy. And that's because a lot of people are scared to spend money if there's no relationship, right? All things being equal, people want to do business with their friends. All things not so equal, people still want to do business with their friends. And if they never spent money with you, then they're really afraid to spend money with you. So I really love how you differentiated that. That provided clarity for myself as well.
Cool.
That's a great trip. That's a great tip. And you said that was something that you learned from studying under, with Agora?
Yeah, that was really that came from two people, really. So let me give credit where credit's due. So first, Mark Ford, Michael Masterson. And the second individual is Clayton Makepeace. And Clayton is, he's one of the greatest living copywriters today. He's a guy that, he generates over $1 million a year from from one client alone in copywriting royalties. And the way Clayton first kind of shared it with me, and it's something that I pass on all the time to clients, is that it's, on the front end, let's say a prospect comes into a particular funnel for a particular product and they don't buy, right? So they're still a prospect. Okay. So on the front end, we move people horizontally, meaning so we'll make them an offer for a front end product, whether it's $19, $29, $49, whatever. The price point is insignificant. If they don't buy, we're going to give them the opportunity to buy a different front end product, right? And we're going to continue to move them horizontally until we put out a product in front of them that really resonates with them and that they buy. But once they buy and they become a customer, they're no longer moved horizontally, meaning they're no longer presented with other $19, $29, $49 offers. Now we move them vertically. And so now we bring them through an ascension process where, we're going to look to now turn them into a more valuable customer or client by giving them more value through higher price point, higher touch, more in-depth programs, products, services, etc.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. And that's the ascension funnel. So once they prove themselves and they become a buyer and they enter your buyers list, you're trying to turn them into a multi-buyer and move them up the funnel. Todd, what are your thoughts on price jumps? Because I've heard different people say different things. Some people say that, you never want to go more than 3 times what they've paid before and scale them slowly. Some people are like, forget it. And Matt, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a hot topic for me. So I'll answer that within a specific context. So typically when marketers are taught, this idea of upselling, right? And when, marketers are taught look, so today, this wasn't in place years ago. Years ago, we didn't have the ability to do one-click upsells, one-click add-on offers. I think that whole technological advancement radically changed the game for what is now feasible to present as a front-end offer, right? Because the reason why you can do a tripwire today and still make that and still be able to break even is not because of the tripwire or your conversion rate on the tripwire, but it's because of the additional upsells and whatnot that you're gonna make to increase the transaction value. But here's the thing. So what most marketers are taught as it relates to upselling is they're taught, like you said, the typical 3 times model. So they're taught look, if somebody comes in and somebody spends $50 with you, $49, that the next offer that you should make them right away in that upsell sequence, in that upsell path, is priced up to about $150. Well, my take on that is, and this is from testing, massive testing, and tons of experience with funnels, obviously, as you know, that is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because where in the world of commerce, and I want your listeners to think about this for 1 second, where in the real world of commerce can you go and will you be offered something immediately after you just bought one thing that is 3 times the price of what you just bought? Nowhere. You go and you buy a men's suit for $3,000. You're offered a shirt for $300. You're offered a belt for $80. You're offered a pair of shoes for $200. Right? You know all these marketers that teach upselling with the 3 times pricing model. They'll almost always start off the discussion, the training by using McDonald's, and they'll say like when you go through McDonald's, what do they ask you? You want fries with that, or you want to whatever upsize, biggie size it, or whatever it is, right? But the reality is that they're not using the 3 times pricing model. You're buying a meal for $6 or whatever it is, and they'll ask you, do you want to biggie size it or whatever for $2, or you want to add fries for $1. And so the reality is that doesn't fall within the realm of typical consumer experience, that 3 times pricing model. What does fall within the realm of consumer experience is what I call an add-on. And typically the very first offer that we use in that sequence is what I call a reverse add-on. And a reverse add-on is an offer that adds additional value, meaning it either gives them what they need next in their journey, or it makes what it is that they just bought, it gets them the results faster, easier, quicker, all that. But it's up to 80% of the price of the product that they just bought, up to 80%. So typically this is why we'll typically see take rates on those offers in, the mid to high 40%, meaning, anywhere from 4 to 5 people will take advantage of it because it becomes a no-brainer, right? They just buy something for $49, and now you offer to them the ability to add something onto their offer for $29. It becomes a no-brainer, right? If it gives them more value and so on and so forth. And so
right, and the psychology there is great because if they just spent $49, what's 20?
Right.
Whereas instead if you're trying to get them to buy a $300 product, it's like you're taking more. It almost makes you think about how, forgive me if I'm interrupting at all, but I just wanted to, while I was thinking about like lead pages, that one of the things that really surprised me is they talked about taking pages and giving pages. I saw Chris speak at one of the internet marketing parties before some conference, and I was really impressed by that because he said that they feel that when you have your form, and of course you're always going to test and every situation is different, but that's why almost all their pages you have to click to get the form to pop up. Because if it was just there, it felt like it was taking, whereas otherwise it was a giving. And what you just described, I'm like, that's so great from a psychological standpoint because I think you're right. If it's an upsell, and it's like you're taking more, right? As opposed to, it just almost seems like, hey, look, I'll make this better for you. Just, give me another $10, and I'll make your $49 thing way better than you could have thought. You know what I mean? Like, I just really
absolutely
love that. I really
and
love that.
there's if you want to get a little advanced for 1 second, I'll just say this, that there's additional benefits to pricing your first add-on offer that way. One is, of course, most people don't even associate this with their upsell sequences. They would call it, and that is there's an inverse correlation between the number of upsell or add-on offers that a new customer takes and refund rate. So the individual who takes 2 of your add-on offers, your refund rate for those people is going to be substantially lower than the people who only take the primary main front-end product, right? So right off the bat, one of the reasons why we want to increase the take rate on the add-on offers is because we know that it reduces refunds, right? So I want to maximize the number of people that take advantage of that offer. See, whereas most marketers are simply thinking about average transaction value, what they're thinking about is, I'm going to have an upsell in here. Like, you have some marketers that go to the extreme and they say, I'm going to have I'm going to sell something for $50, and then I'm going to make an upsell offer to every customer for $497, right? And in their mind, they say, I only need 1 person out of 100 to take that offer for it to radically bump our average transaction value. Right. And so that's true, okay? However, what that means is that 99 out of 100 of your customers are only taking advantage of the very first product, right? And so the other thing is that when you're in the information business, right, I want those new customers to spend more time with me, quote unquote. I want them to hear my voice more. I want them to see more of my videos, read more of my content, right, because they bond quicker. The relationship is established quicker, which increases the speed at which I can move them to the first back end offer, right, a week later, 5 days later. Whereas for the marketers that are going from a $49 product to the extreme of $497, 99 out of 100 of their new customers are only being exposed to that very first front end product, and that's it. So now the back end is infinitely harder for them than it is for me. And the final benefit is that it creates yes momentum going into the other offers. So I get a yes, and then I get another yes from a substantial chunk of those new customers. Whereas the marketer who's going from 49 to, let's say again, 497, the overwhelming majority of their customers are immediately giving them a no.
Right.
So big difference. And the reality is that economically, because with the reverse add-on, you get substantially a much higher take rate, that you still will bump average transaction value. The difference is that you're doing it only because you're getting, like I said, 40+% of your customers to take advantage of that add-on, whereas the person who's going to the extreme, is getting much lower. And the last thing that I'll say is the idea that when I hear people say, like, you can use, price, take your first upsell and price it at 3 times, and you'll still get 20 to 30% of your customers to take it. That's ridiculous. That's most of the time, marketers are not seeing that. If they're pricing it at 3 times, 4 times, they're not seeing 30% of their customers take advantage of that offer.
Todd, that is awesome. I hope everyone's taking notes. If not, you better go get yourself a pen right now. Pause this, because Todd is dropping bombs. I mean, that was beautiful. That was really beautiful.
Cool. Awesome.
No, man, I love it. And it just goes to show the experience you've got and the wisdom that you've had. So that is really very, very, very insightful. And that's something that I'm going to start testing as well, more of those. Now, do you believe in a limit on how many upsells? I know guys that they will do 8 or 9 upsells. They'll put it there just in case there's that one customer that'll go through it all. Do you think that there's, like, at some point it's too much? I've been through some, like, infomercial style. They drive you to a website and they want to, it gets too much. And I don't know, it's very corporate looking, but I don't know if it converts very well. But what do you feel?
Yeah, I think that it depends on what the customer does. And so what I'll tell you is that when we get 2 no's in an add-on sequence, the sequence is done. So if somebody, says no to the first reverse add-on, and then they say no to the next offer, they're done, right? I'm not going to continue to hammer them through the sequence. What I will say is that if you have a buyer, though, who is excited by what it is that they're being presented with, sure, I'm gonna make additional offers. Except I don't think we ever go beyond 4, because I think personally, I just think you reach a point where look, right? If you go back to what we said at the beginning, where the front end is all about acquiring a customer, and the goal is to then develop a lifelong business relationship with them. I want to start that process, that experience off with the best experience that I can. And so sometimes you got to be willing to practice a little bit of delayed gratification, right? And put it off. But again, I will say that, look, if somebody is indicating to you interest, well, then it does them a disservice if you're not giving them the opportunity to get all the value from you that they would ultimately want.
Yeah, that's very true, and I really agree with that. And I think you're right, because otherwise you're just trying to sell them stuff. You're not, because you said, after 4 products, it's like, hey man, what more do you really need to buy? this is a restaurant. You order 4 meals. Like, look, you got to eat something first before I can sell you anything else. So
and I think like at the fourth, like if you get to the fourth offer, like that should be your big daddy. Like in other words, like somebody's bought, they bought the front end, they bought the reverse add-on. Then we go to typically like a mid tier, and if they buy that, I'm going to give them the next offer that I'm going to present them is going to be the big daddy, right? And if they want it, they take it. If they don't, then they're done, right? And so we're still giving them the opportunity to get maximum value from us. But I think the key is when you get 2 no's, take them out of that sequence.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great tip. Now, what about marketing execution? Because I know a lot of people that they'll spend forever in the planning stage, or they're afraid to pull the trigger, or, they're worried about things breaking or not working. For you, I mean, when you're dealing with some of the campaigns that you've had to deal with, the timelines and, like what's your philosophy or how do you approach the execution of it? Because, there's so many people, like I've worked with a lot of people with clients with Infusionsoft, and a lot of these campaigns never even see the light of day. And and is it because they're just afraid to put it out there? Is it because it's not ready? What do you think about that aspect, and how do you push through that to really get your stuff out the door? And your stuff looks really good. Like I'm definitely like envy. I'm like, dude, I don't know who his web guy is, but I need to steal him because your stuff just looks so crisp. I mean that jokingly, of course, but you just.
I appreciate that, man. I think that so we break the execution down into 3 phases, and these 3 phases do not overlap with each other, and it's an important point that I'll come back to in just a second. So the first phase is engineering, right, and that's when we're actually kind of let's call it we're setting up the funnel. Now, when we're engineering a brand new funnel, we're not engineering the entire funnel, meaning we're not we're not setting up all the upsells and downsells and all the, intelligence and logic in there, because we're trying to get to what I call a minimum viable funnel, which is we're trying to get to a point where we can go to the market and test the premise behind the front end product, the main front end product, right? Because the reality is that if look, the upsell or add-on offer sequence doesn't matter if nobody's converting, nobody's buying on the main offer, right? So before you worry about structuring the upsell sequence and all that, you want to go out and you want to test a minimum viable funnel, and we typically will do that. Typically, we do that with cold traffic, with paid traffic. Now, if for somebody that doesn't have the cash flow, then you can certainly start with your house list. Now, if your house list doesn't buy the product, if it's not converting, then you're never going to convert, or the likelihood of converting with cold traffic, goes way down. But what we're ultimately doing is we're engineering a minimum viable funnel, and then we go and we immediately test it with cold traffic. And of course, we're tracking everything, right, so that we can see ROI. Now, depending on that initial test and depending on the ROI, we may go into the next stage, which is optimization. And optimization is when we begin implementing, like depending on the ROI, if we're close to break even, well, then I know that if we're close to break even, that we're going to be able to implement the add-on offer sequence. And, I can run the numbers in my head, like using low projections, like how will the economics of that funnel change? And so at the optimization stage is when we begin to implement the add-on offers, and when we go into our testing phase, right? That's when we will look at the funnel. After we roll out the add-on offer sequence, we'll then look at the funnel and we'll look at what I call the optimization metrics, which are things like opt-in rate, sales conversion rate, order form abandonment rate, and upsell take rate. And I look at it like I look at a chain. And I'm always looking, when I look at that chain, for the weakest link, right? Because like I say all the time, right, like everybody knows, the strength of a chain is determined by the weakest link, not the strongest link. Doesn't matter how many pounds the strongest link or the second strongest link can withstand. That chain is only as strong as the absolute weakest link. That's what, right, we call the constraint. And so we identify using our optimization metrics what is the constraint. And then when let's say the constraint is the opt-in page because, opt-in rate is 7% or something crazy, right? So then we go to work testing and tracking the opt-in page. And the beauty of what we do in the direct response business, especially online, is that the reality is that the worst your funnel is ever going to perform is today.
Right.
Because,
love that. Yes.
Right?
I'm so glad you said that. I love that. Yep. Keep going.
No, because then, we're able to just test new elements and eventually, like, look, you might test 10 new headlines, and it only takes one of those to bump conversions for you to make progress. Then we look again and we see what's the constraint. Okay, the opt-in page is still the constraint. So we go and we continue to test, and we're incrementally improving the results until that opt-in page is no longer the constraint. Then we might see, okay, the order form abandonment rate is now the constraint. And so now we go and we continue that process. Now, what I will say is that there is a point where you can be operating within the second stage, optimizing the funnel, and the third stage. The third stage is scaling the funnel. And scaling is the easiest of the stages, and it's also the most exciting part. And it's really where once you're able to extract out $1 for every dollar you put in, the name of the game becomes how many dollars can I put in on a daily basis, right? And so at that point, it becomes, I want to scale my budget. That's really scaling a funnel is more about scaling the volume of traffic that you're putting into the funnel. And in order to do that, we just scale up our budget. We go from, $100 a day to, $200 a day to $500 a day to as high as we can possibly go. And remember that for everybody that's listening, you're not starting out with $20,000 sitting in an account waiting to be used for marketing. Remember, we're putting in 500 today or 200 today or 100 today or 50 today, wherever you're starting. And our funnel is recouping that money plus customers, plus leads, and now we're taking that $50 or $100 and we're putting it back to work for us tomorrow, doing the same. Right. And then the game, right? So your bank account has not gone down at all. Yep. You're recycling the same dollars over and over. Then it becomes, well, let me see if I could put in 200 today and recoup my ad spend. Okay, I can. So let me do it tomorrow. Okay, now can I go to 300? And can I go to 400? And can I go to 500? And so it's this interesting perspective that you've got to the average marketer needs to shift from, right? It's this initially for most marketers, it's this idea of, well, how can I spend the least amount on traffic? How can I spend the least amount on marketing? Whereas the reality is that the savviest marketers, I look at it the complete opposite. Whereas I want to be able to spend the most amount that I possibly can every day because it's not an expense. Right? If I'm recouping it, there's nothing. It's not like the cable bill or the electric bill or the telephone bill. It is every time I put 500 out there in the marketplace every day, I get $500 back plus customers plus leads. So now let me test $1,000 a day. Let me test 1,500 a day. And, there was a point where like the most exciting days were when we were spending at points $5,000 a day. Yep. And it wasn't like I had, it wasn't like I dedicated 150,000 for the month in traffic. Not at all. You build up to that over time, right? And you build up to it over time. Even today, when I start out a new campaign, we start out at like $100 a day. And, I'm not, starting out at like $100 a day and that's it. Let that $100, let me prove it with $100, right? Because look, you don't start out with 1,000 or 5,000 or 10. You start out with $100 and let it prove itself and then recycle it and grow it.
Wow. This is definitely like a seminar and an audio, and this has been great. And I love it. You've given really great answers. Either I agree with or things that I hadn't even considered. So I love that. So your 3 stages was engineering, where you just set up your basic viable model, just get it out there, see if it even works, see if people are even interested at all, test it with your cold traffic, track everything. Then the second stage was optimization, where you take a look at your entire funnel here, the chain, and then you look at the weakest link. And do you test multiple things at once, or do you really just focus on the weakest link first?
I always focus on the constraint, because the way to look at it is like, let's say you have a 5-lane highway, and that 5-lane highway then goes into, 1 lane, for for a half a mile. And then after that, one lane, or whatever, one lane going each way. And then it goes back to a five lane highway. So in that example, the what's often called the bottleneck, which is really the same as the constraint, is that section of the highway that's, only one lane. Well, taking any other section of the highway, like if we take the 5-lane portion and we turn it into a 6-lane, it's not going to do anything, because the bottleneck is still the bottleneck, right? And so we always focus one at a time on the constraint, right? Like, because improving the upsell take rate isn't going to do it's not really going to move the needle if the constraint is like the opt-in page. And so we just always one at a time identify the constraint and eliminate it as the constraint, then go on to the next weakest link, right? And there's always, at any one point, there's always in any process, there is always a constraint. It's your job when you're optimizing, to identify that constraint and focus your optimization efforts on fixing or opening up that bottleneck.
That is so awesome. Yeah, Todd, you have so much value to give. I want to keep you, I just want to keep you here. What are you doing for the next couple hours?
I'm with you, man. I hear you.
Yeah, I love this. This is why I do this. I mean, again, this is what inspired the podcast in the beginning. I had a buddy that said, Daryl, if I was able to sit down and have conversations like you have with some of the people I'd be doing $1 million funnels myself. And that's what really triggered it. And just even this conversation, I'm like, man, the people that are listening to this, for some of these people, it's going to be life-changing. So just thank you for bringing that to the table and just not hiding anything and just being so forthcoming with it all. It means a lot, I know for you, it's just about giving back. It's not going to change anything. No competitor is really going to be able to model and do what you do anyway. So it's not a big deal at all. So I just really, really value and appreciate that. Todd, what are you working on these days? What's got you really excited? I'm seeing your ads all over the place. What do you got going on?
Yeah, so we just released a program, like a live training, so that enrollment is closed. So this is not a pitch for that, but this is extremely exciting for me, and it's on the topic of smart funnels. And so I won't bore everybody with all of the background on why this is, like, in 2016, the big trend with online marketing is going to be marketing processes, marketing methods that dynamically interact with and adapt to who the prospect is and what the prospect does as they're interacting with your funnel and your marketing. So we're seeing this in the world of apps, more customization, personalization. We're seeing this already with of course retargeting, which most people should be at least somewhat familiar with, right? Retargeting, which today is it provides some of the highest ROI of all paid methods. And look, it's an example. It's a type of smart or more intelligence built into marketing, right? Displaying a particular ad to a particular product based on to a particular prospect for a particular product based on a particular page or set of pages that a prospect has visited. Yep. And so, right, it's intelligence. It's not just a generic general ad. It's an intelligent advertising process, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so that's one little example. Now, there are companies like, I think it is it's either Progressive or Priceline, I can't even remember, who today, looking at their metrics, they were able to see that visitors to their website that are on an iPhone are better quality customers. They respond to higher quality deals than, let's say, visitors to their site with an Android device. That's awesome. So today they have intelligence built in where if you go to their site on an iPhone, the deals that you're going to see are different from the deals that the Android users are going to see. So what it's allowed them to do is it allows them to further monetize the quality of the iPhone visitor, and it allows them to bump conversions with the Android visitor, right? And so rather than simply just presenting a one-size-fits-all deal or message to everybody, they're using intelligence. And so what the training program, what that's all about is how you're able to build in that marketing intelligence through every stage of your funnel, even on your main site and blog. So, for example, like a simple example, and this is stuff that all of your your listeners can begin to be aware of and conscious of, because most are already going through some level of a smart funnel or a smart marketing process. But a simple example is, you've got an individual who goes to your blog, for example, and they're interacting with a particular category of articles on your blog. Well, it's the ability to display a sidebar that's targeted to that category of content. Or if they're on it, if you have a golf blog, for example, and they're reading an article about golf attire, right? And so your sidebar is now dedicated to golf attire offers and lead magnets, if you will, that are directly linked to golf attire deals, a deal on shirts, a deal on hats, a deal on shoes, and so on. It's the ability to present a first visit incentive, a first visit offer to a prospect the first time they go to your sales page, right? Giving them an offer, a special offer that they only get on the first visit to that product page. It's the ability to use what I call dynamic offer stacking, where somebody goes to your sales page a second time and you're able to have an additional bonus that they now get. And that's only being displayed to them because it's their second visit to the page. Or on the third visit to the page, you're able to display a discount, a deal, a payment plan. It's the ability to, let's say, have a delayed add to cart button on the first visit, that when somebody goes to watch the VSL the first time, on the second time there is no delay anymore. Or on the second time when they go to watch the VSL, they're able to pick up where they left off rather than simply forcing everybody to start from the beginning. Or if they go to a VSL page and they don't buy, they now go over to your blog and they're followed around your blog with what I call internal funnel retargeting. So now they see a banner on your own blog specific to that product that they didn't buy, and the same thing happens. It's fully coordinated externally, where when they go to Facebook, they're retargeted with an ad to bring them back. And once they buy, not only are they no longer externally retargeted or internally retargeted, but maybe now internally there's an ad on your blog. Either there's a banner for them to access their product, and then 3 days later, if they come back, there's now a banner that's displayed for them to take advantage of your first back end. Right? It's an adaptive, interactive process that gives every prospect, every visitor, a customized experience based on what they're doing, not doing, what they're consuming, what they're not consuming, and so on. And so in 2016, you're going to see massive steps with that. You're already seeing it now, and you're certainly going to see more advancements at the end of 2015. But the beauty is that technology that was once only available to the big companies is now available to us smaller players. And so it's allowing for some incredible stuff. Like we're already seeing, dynamic VSLs. Video sales letters where you're actually able to interact with it. And based on your answers, it brings you down a different path, right? So, you're talking to men and women and, they, tell me, are you a man or are you a woman? And they say, I'm a woman. And it brings them down, same VSL, but now it brings them down a totally different path than if they were a man, all housed within the same VSL, all dynamic, responsive, interactive, the whole nine. You couple that with some of the examples that I just showed you of smart funnel or marketing intelligence, and that's why marketers are now seeing conversions creep up into the low double digits, and so that's what I'm most excited about.
Which is super exciting, man. That's super exciting because really, you mentioned at the very beginning of the call about salesmanship in print, which is basically leverage salesmanship. It's the ability to sell to more people than you could physically one-on-one. And what you're describing is basically turning technology to replicate how you would respond. If you were there sitting face-to-face with that person, you would talk to them differently if they were a man or a woman or all that stuff. I love that. Well,
what's funny, Darryl, to show everybody, your audience, how just how savvy you are. that was the big idea behind the funnel. We had a series of videos, like a big internal product launch, and what you just described was the exact big idea that I utilized when designing that campaign. That it was like this idea of like, look, we all know how much higher conversions are when a prospect meets with a salesperson, right? Like Salesforce came out with a stat that it's between 20 and 40%. And so I'm not saying that anybody's going to experience a 20 to 40% conversion rate, but how much higher than the typical 2 or 3% or even 4% would your conversion rate go if you had a real live, interactive, dynamic, responsive, attentive salesperson that was doing all of your marketing and selling for you? Well, a smart funnel is the closest thing that we have today to that experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So kudos to you, man, for nailing. Just shows everybody how savvy you really are, man.
Well, no, I just stand on people like your shoulders. That's it. So.
Not at all, dude. Believe me, I've learned listening to your podcast, man. I enjoy it, and you are absolutely. I wouldn't be here if you weren't a savvy marketer, dude. And so for everybody listening, man, believe me, I've just been at this game a long time, and so the thing that I bring to the table that really anybody else and everybody else listening has the same opportunity to leverage, and that's just experience. That's all it is, right? And I think that might be a great way for us to start to wrap up. There's so much more that I could share and would love to share, but I'll say this, that that don't ever. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for you, Daryl, so I'll speak for myself. For everybody, don't look at me or any other top marketer. This is my opinion now. Don't look at me or any other top marketer as this marketing genius or bringing this level of intelligence to the table that you don't have. I can speak for myself, and I can speak for many of the marketers that I consider friends, that I don't bring anything innate to the table. Like, I was a terrible student in high school, and it took me 6 years to graduate from college, and I got like an 860 on the SATs, and which if those of you who know anything about the SATs know that it like starts at 600 and goes up to like 1500 or something. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and so I didn't read a book cover to cover until I was like in my 20s. And so I share that because like you've got the same opportunity. Like you've got to be diligent. You've got to be a serious student of this business. You've got to be willing to put in the time. You certainly should be willing to work with a mentor, like somebody like Daryl, and who can kind of help you avoid the pits and the mines, the minefields out there. But recognize that with time, with study, with due diligence, and with practice, you can develop the chops. I believe personally, just from my own experience and that of many of my friends, that marketing is a learned skill. It's not like, I used to think, these advertising folks behind, in these rooms, all creative geniuses that, like they were just naturally, innately creative. That might be the case in that world, but in the direct response world, I believe that it consists and it's made up of learned skills. And so you can learn them and develop them. You just need to decide that that's what you're going to do.
Todd, that was awesome. You can just drop the mic and walk away now. That's
exactly like Eminem, 50 Cent. Boom.
Thank you, podcast crew. Good night. Boom.
That's it.
So, Todd, how do we get in touch with you? How do people? You've got so much knowledge and experience, and everything you say just rings with truth. How do anyone that wants to follow you or get in touch with you, how do they reach out to you? What are the best ways to contact you?
Yeah, so there's two ways. One, I think that everybody listening should go check out a free video series that I have. It does lead to a product, but the free video series is better than lots of paid funnel trainings, and you can find it at sixfigurefunnelformula.com. That's SIX. So six-figurefunnelformula.com. Just opt in. You'll go through an awesome training video. I think there are something like, I don't even know, 17,000 likes and like 800 and some odd comments on that series, and it's just it's stellar. The other place is you can go to our blog at marketingfunnelautomation.com/blog, and we got a bunch of articles and videos and training that really is more I don't want to say advanced, but it's definitely, it's for the serious entrepreneur, like you said at the beginning, Daryl, the serious marketer who's looking to build a real deal, reliable, consistent, sustainable business. Those are the two places, man.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so we had sixfigurefunnelformula.com, that's SIX, and it was marketingfunnelautomation.com. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and definitely go check this out. And I know the 4 videos you're talking about. I didn't watch all of them, but I remember I was launching a course and I did some look at your stuff. Those are really well done videos. So I definitely encourage you to go check that out. sixfigurefunnelformula.com and marketingfunnelautomation.com. Todd, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
My gosh. We'll have to save that for part 2. How about that? We will leave this as part 1, and we'll come back for part 2. Yeah, because I think that there's a couple things. I would love to just share with your folks the whole idea of pricing, right? Do you start with a low price product and then go up, or do you start with a high price product and go down? I think that we should talk about certainly the developing an idea behind your marketing funnel, because I think that most people skip what I believe is the most critical part of designing a funnel, which is, how do you develop the idea behind the message that you're actually going to communicate throughout the funnel, right? It's not like, most people get caught up in the tactics like, all right, so should I have a tripwire, and then should I have an upsell and then a downsell and blah, blah, blah. And they miss the whole strategic element of designing the message. What are they going to say to get the market's attention, keep engagement, say something new, different, unique, and fresh to the market? How do you understand what idea meets that criteria and what idea doesn't? And so, yeah, there's a bunch more that we can chat about, and it would be my pleasure to do that. I so appreciate you bringing me on here, and I so appreciate the opportunity to share my craziness with your tribe that is clearly from listening to your podcast, man, is a savvy group. And as a fan of your show, yeah, man, it was an honor to be on here, dude.
Thank you. You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.